The salvage ship Aurora drifted through the quiet emptiness of space. Its hull was worn from years of service, and its crew of 7 worked with the patience of people who had grown used to long silence between discoveries. Most salvage missions brought little more than broken machines or forgotten cargo. Yet today was different. On the forward deck, Myra, the navigator, adjusted her sensors. A cluster of signals had caught her eye, strange metallic fragments scattered across the edge of a dead asteroid field. They shimmered faintly, unlike ordinary wreckage. She leaned closer, frowning as the readings grew sharper. "Captain, you should see this," she called. Captain Wren stepped forward, a tall man with calm eyes that had seen many strange things in the far reaches of space. He studied the display. The fragments floated in patterns, as if once part of something far larger. They glowed with a golden hue, reflecting the distant starlight. "Bring us closer," Wren said. The Aurora moved slowly through the debris. The crew gathered at the viewing window as the first piece of the fragments drifted past. It was a curved plate of metal, smoother than anything they had seen before. Engraved on its surface were markings that caught the light in shifting ways. They were not letters, nor were they pictures, but something in between, a language carved into gold. Taro, the ship's mechanic, tapped the glass with excitement. "That's no ordinary wreck. Look at the shine. Even after centuries in space, it hasn't rusted or cracked. This is alien work." The crew exchanged glances. Alien ruins were rare, and most had already been claimed by powerful empires or research councils. For humans, who were still considered newcomers in the galaxy, finding untouched alien remains was a dream. Myra gathered more scans. "There's more. These fragments aren't random. They fit together. I think this was once a map." The word map stirred something inside every crew member. Maps meant direction, and direction meant treasure, knowledge, or secrets lost to time. The crew began retrieving the golden fragments. Each piece was heavy and warm to the touch, almost alive. The engravings shifted faintly under the ship's lights, as if reacting to human presence. The mechanic, the pilot, even the youngest crew member could not resist running their hands across the strange symbols. Hours passed as the fragments were laid out in the cargo bay. Bit by bit, the golden puzzle took shape. At first it seemed chaotic, but when Myra connected the last large section, the markings revealed a star field. There were lines leading from one star to another, forming paths like trails in the sky. At the center of the map glowed a single point brighter than all others. "This is not just a map," Myra whispered. "It's a guide." Wren studied the glowing point. He had traveled many star systems and heard countless stories from other species. There were tales told in hushed voices about a place called the Forbidden Labyrinth. According to alien legends, it was a place where ships entered but never returned. Some said it was alive, others claimed it was a prison built by ancient powers. No one had ever found proof. Now, staring at the golden map, Wren realized the stories were not just myths. The center point matched the coordinates of the forbidden region. Lian, the ship's pilot, frowned. "Every alien we've met warns us about that place. They say it swallows fleets. Are we really thinking of going there?" Taro grinned despite the warning. "That's why no one else has tried again. They fear it. But we humans are different. If this map was left behind, it means someone wanted it to be found. Maybe it's a test, or maybe it's a prize." The crew fell silent. In their hearts, they knew humans had always been underestimated. To the great empires, humanity was still seen as small and fragile, too young to stand among the giants of the galaxy. Yet time and again, humans proved they could adapt where others would not. Myra touched the golden surface once more. "This map survived thousands of years. Whoever made it wanted someone to follow it. Maybe they knew one day a species stubborn enough would come along." Wren finally spoke, his voice steady but carrying weight. This could be dangerous. The legends might be true. But if this labyrinth hides something of value, we cannot ignore it. If others are too afraid to search, then perhaps it was meant for us. The decision hung in the air. Each crew member thought of what might wait inside the labyrinth: knowledge, power, or perhaps only endless danger. Yet the call of the unknown burned in their hearts. Humanity's history was built on stepping into places others feared. This moment was no different. At last, Rin gave the order. Set our course for the forbidden coordinates. The crew prepared the Aurora for the journey. Engines hummed, lights flickered across the panels, and the golden map was secured at the center of the cargo bay. As the ship turned, the glowing point on the map seemed to shine brighter, as if welcoming them forward. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, cold and silent. Yet within the ship, there was a fire of purpose. The humans had uncovered the key to a mystery that had haunted the galaxy for ages. The forbidden labyrinth waited, and unlike all who came before, the Aurora would not turn away. As the ship accelerated into the dark, the fragments of gold pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. The journey into the unknown had begun. The Aurora moved through deep space with steady purpose. For days the crew followed the golden map, tracing the shining lines across the galaxy. Each star system they crossed matched the patterns engraved in the fragments. The crew no longer doubted the truth of the map. It was guiding them exactly as it had been designed to do. Captain Rin spent hours standing at the viewing deck. Ahead, the stars stretched like a sea of light, but in the distance, something darker waited. A shadowed region hung in the void, a patch of space without the familiar sparkle of suns. The coordinates of the golden map pointed directly toward it. The forbidden labyrinth was close. Myra, the navigator, studied the readings with a mix of fear and excitement. The sensors are confused. It looks like space itself is folding. Distances are not behaving normally. The maps from alien archives were right. This place should not exist. The pilot, Liane, gripped the controls carefully. Then we go slow. No sudden jumps. If the labyrinth wants to trick us, we won't let it. As the ship approached the border of the strange region, the golden fragments in the cargo bay began to glow faintly, as if reacting to their destination. Taro, the mechanic, noticed it first. He rushed into the captain's quarters with wide eyes. The map is alive, Captain. The symbols are moving, shifting like they are pointing us inside. It is like it knows we are close. The crew gathered around the glowing pieces. The carvings, once still, now pulsed with golden light. New lines spread across the map, forming paths deeper into the strange region. It was not only a map of stars, but also a guide through the labyrinth itself. Captain Rin placed his hand on the golden surface. It felt warm, almost like touching sunlight. He turned to his crew. We came this far. The labyrinth has shown itself to us. It is time to see what waits inside. The Aurora crossed into the forbidden zone. At once, the stars vanished. The ship drifted into a space unlike any they had ever seen. There was no darkness, no light, only shifting veils of gold and silver that stretched in endless patterns. It was like flying through the inside of a dream. The crew stared in silence. The labyrinth was not made of stone or metal. It was made of space itself, bent and shaped into corridors of energy. The path ahead curved sharply, like the twisting walls of a maze. Myra's voice broke the silence. This is not natural. No star, no black hole, no force of nature can do this. Something built it. Something powerful. Liane adjusted the ship's course, carefully following the glowing trail on the golden map. The walls of the labyrinth shifted around them, sometimes closing like jaws, sometimes opening into vast empty chambers where golden arcs flickered in silence. The ship moved like a small bird inside a giant cage. Hours passed, and the crew grew tense. The labyrinth was silent, but its silence carried weight. No signal, no sound, not even the faint hum of radiation could be detected. The void felt alive, as if watching them. In the cargo bay, Taro worked on stabilizing the engines. This place is playing with our systems. The energy here makes our readings useless. Without the golden map, we would already be lost. Myra agreed, her eyes fixed on the shifting symbols. The labyrinth allows us to pass because we carry the key. That is why the others failed. They came without it. The ship followed the guiding light through one narrow corridor after another. The walls of gold shimmered with strange shapes, as though whispers of old civilizations were etched into their glow. Faces and patterns seemed to appear and vanish in the light, too quick to study. Suddenly, the Aurora entered a vast chamber. It was a hollow sphere of golden light stretching farther than their eyes could see. At its center floated a colossal gate, a structure of pure brilliance. The gate was a circle of shining metal, carved with the same markings as the fragments they had found. It hung in silence, waiting. The crew gasped. It was the silent gate, the true entrance to the heart of the labyrinth. Captain Rin gave the order to approach. The gate was immense, larger than any station or ship built by living species. As the Aurora drew near, the golden fragments in the cargo bay lifted gently into the air. They floated like feathers, forming themselves into a perfect circle. The pieces locked together with a soundless flash, becoming a whole disk of shining gold. The disk pulsed, and the markings on it lit up in harmony with the carvings on the gate. The labyrinth had accepted their presence. Myra's hands trembled as she studied the glowing map. It wants us to enter. The path continues beyond this gate. But Lien hesitated. His voice was heavy with caution. Captain, once we pass, we may not come back. The stories said no one returned from the labyrinth. We may be crossing a line that cannot be undone. The crew fell quiet. Each of them understood the risk. Yet the Golden Gate pulled at their hearts, promising answers no one else in the galaxy had ever dared to claim. Captain Rin stood tall, his voice steady. Every great step in human history began with someone willing to face the unknown. We carry the key. That means this journey was meant for us. If we turn back now, we will be no different from the others who feared this place. The crew exchanged glances, and slowly, one by one, they nodded. The Aurora drifted closer. The gate flared with golden light, brighter than any sun. The labyrinth itself seemed to awaken, its walls humming softly for the first time. The silence broke into a deep resonance that echoed across the ship. With a final command, Rin ordered, "Take us through." The gate opened like a living eye, revealing a corridor of pure radiance. The Aurora entered, swallowed by the light. Behind them, the gate closed, and the vast chamber fell silent once more. The humans had crossed into the true heart of the forbidden golden labyrinth. The Aurora glided deeper into the golden corridor. Behind them, the silent gate had vanished into a wall of shining light. There was no turning back now. The crew felt the weight of the labyrinth closing around them, but their determination held firm. Inside, the corridor stretched endlessly, its walls pulsing as though alive. The glow was soft, but it carried a strange warmth, almost comforting. Yet beneath that warmth was an unsettling feeling, as if unseen eyes watched their every move. Myra sat at her console, scanning the walls. Her screen flickered with shifting shapes that refused to stay still. "Captain, these lights are more than decoration. They are messages. I think the labyrinth is covered in writing." Taro leaned closer to the viewing window. Strange figures and patterns rippled along the walls like liquid gold. Some were circles, some spirals, others resembled stars and ships. They danced across the corridor in endless motion. "Writing, yes," Taro agreed, "but no one in the galaxy has ever understood this language. It is too old, too strange." Myra did not give up. She compared the markings on the corridor with those on the golden map. Slowly, Her eyes widened. Wait. Look at this. The patterns match. The map is a key. If I align its symbols with what we see here, the walls begin to make sense. The crew gathered around her screen as she translated piece by piece. What had once been incomprehensible shapes began to reveal words, simple and powerful. The first sentence read, "Beware the labyrinth." The second, "Those who enter must choose." The third, "Greed will lead to ruin." Silence filled the bridge. The crew stared at each other, each realizing the truth. The labyrinth was not only a structure. It was a trial, a place designed to test those who dared to enter. Captain Rin stood tall, his gaze steady. These are warnings. They were left behind on purpose. Whatever waits at the heart of this labyrinth, it will not be easy to claim. But we must continue. The ship pressed onward. The golden walls shifted again, opening into a vast chamber. Inside floated dozens of broken ships, their hulls torn and silent. Some were sleek vessels of alien design, others were heavy carriers. They all drifted without power, abandoned like ghosts. The crew's breath caught. These were the remains of those who had come before. Entire expeditions had vanished into the labyrinth, and here was the proof. Lien steered the Aurora carefully between the wrecks. So many tried. None returned. Why would we succeed where they failed? Taro's voice carried quiet confidence. Because we hold the map. They entered blindly. We do not. As they passed one of the broken ships, Myra gasped. Look. The markings on the hull. They are the same symbols as on the walls. Whoever built this labyrinth left messages for them too, but they could not read them. The realization was chilling. Humanity's discovery of the golden fragments was not an accident. Without the map, they too would be lost, drifting forever among these wrecks. Captain Rin ordered the crew to continue scanning the walls. More warnings appeared, piecing together a story. The labyrinth is not treasure but trial. Only those who balance wisdom and courage may pass. The heart will open to those who are worthy. Each sentence weighed heavily on their minds. The labyrinth was not simply a trap or a test of strength. It was a judgment, designed by beings older and greater than any living race. Hours passed as the Aurora followed the glowing path. At last, the chamber narrowed into another corridor. This one was darker, the light faint and flickering, as though testing their courage. Suddenly the ship shuddered. A beam of golden energy shot across the corridor, nearly striking their hull. Lien pulled the controls sharply, and the ship rolled aside just in time. Traps, Taro shouted. The labyrinth is alive. It will not let us pass easily. The crew worked together, guiding the ship through the maze of shifting beams. Each trap was deadly, but the golden map pulsed brighter, giving them clues. Where the light shone strongest, safety lay ahead. At last, the ship emerged from the corridor, shaken but intact. The crew exhaled in relief, though their hearts pounded with the memory of near disaster. Beyond the traps, another chamber opened, larger than any they had seen. At its center stood a monolith of pure gold, tall as a mountain, glowing with ancient energy. Its surface was covered in carvings that seemed to move like flowing water. The crew gazed in awe. This was no ordinary relic. It was a message left by the builders themselves. Myra began to translate, using the golden map as her guide. The carvings spoke in simple but powerful phrases. We built the labyrinth to guard our legacy. Many will come seeking power. Few will understand that power is a burden. Only those who carry the will to share, not to rule, may pass. The crew listened in silence. The labyrinth was not meant to hand power to the greedy. It was a trial of character, a test of the heart as much as the mind. Rin looked at his crew. Now I understand why all the others failed. They came seeking glory for themselves. They saw the labyrinth as treasure, not as a trial. That is why they never returned. The golden monolith pulsed once, as if acknowledging his words. Then, slowly, it split open, revealing another passage beyond. The way forward was unlocked. The crew exchanged glances. They had seen the wrecks of the fallen, read the warnings, and faced the traps. Yet the labyrinth allowed them to move deeper. Lien spoke softly, almost reverently. It is watching us. It is measuring us. Every step we take is part of its judgment. The aurora moved forward once again. The new passage glowed brighter than before, as if the labyrinth had accepted their progress. In the quiet of the bridge, Myra whispered the last words carved on the monolith. Only those who choose wisely will reach the heart. The crew sat in silence, each lost in thought. The labyrinth had warned them, tested them, and shown them the price of failure. Now, as they traveled deeper into its core, one truth became clear. The forbidden golden labyrinth was not a prison. It was a question. And humanity was the answer yet to be proven. The aurora sailed deeper into the labyrinth, guided by the golden light of the map. Each corridor seemed stranger than the last. Sometimes the walls bent inward like the ribs of a giant beast, other times they stretched outward like endless fields of golden fire. The crew had passed through warnings, traps, and wrecks of those who had failed before them. Yet the labyrinth still tested their resolve. The new passage opened into a chamber unlike anything they had seen. The room was vast and shaped like a cube, its walls glowing with moving patterns. In the center floated thousands of golden shards, spinning slowly in silence. They shifted their position every few seconds, forming new shapes, new puzzles, and new barriers. Myra stared at the display with wide eyes. This is a maze inside the maze. The shards move like pieces on a board. If we try to rush through, they will crush the ship. Lien studied the motion of the shards carefully. They were not random. Each movement followed a rhythm, almost like a song. He tapped the controls slowly, guiding the ship forward a short distance, then stopped before the next wave of shifting shards. The others held their breath as golden fragments the size of towers slid past the ship with terrifying force. A single strike could shatter the aurora into pieces. Yet Lien's hands were steady, and his timing was precise. He was not rushing, only moving with the rhythm of the labyrinth itself. Captain Rin spoke quietly, as though not to disturb the fragile balance. This is not a place for power. This is a place for patience. We must move with the labyrinth, not against it. Hours passed. The aurora advanced step by step, each movement a careful dance between danger and safety. At times the shards seemed to test their courage, moving so close that golden light blinded the crew. At other times the gaps stretched wide, as if inviting them forward. Finally, after long struggle, they reached the far side of the chamber. The shards slowed their movement, then drifted apart to open a clear path. The labyrinth had allowed them to pass. The crew breathed with relief. Taro laughed softly, though his voice shook. Any other ship would have tried to force its way through. They would have been torn apart. But we humans know how to wait. That is why we survived. The next corridor twisted into spirals. Strange illusions filled the walls, showing visions of distant worlds, some destroyed, some thriving. The crew soon realized these were not random images but memories of civilizations that had once tried to conquer the labyrinth. Some images showed alien fleets burning, others showed mighty rulers kneeling in despair. Myra whispered, "The labyrinth is speaking. It is showing us the cost of arrogance. Those who came with pride were broken." The crew pressed forward, and the illusions faded. Another chamber opened before them, this one smaller and darker. At its center stood a platform of stone surrounded by golden light. Symbols glowed faintly on its surface, forming a puzzle of shifting lines. Ren ordered the ship to hold steady. Then, with careful steps, he and Myra suited up and left the Aurora through the airlock. They floated gently onto the platform, the only solid ground they had seen inside the labyrinth. As their boots touched the stone, the lines on the platform lit brighter. The puzzle came alive, shifting like a living game. Myra studied it with sharp focus. The lines formed paths, but every wrong choice caused the ground to tremble dangerously. "This is a test of mind," she said. "Not of strength, but of patience and logic." Together, Rin and Myra traced the correct paths. Each line they chose caused the labyrinth walls to glow brighter, as if rewarding them. Each mistake caused the golden air to hum with warning. They worked slowly, thinking carefully, never rushing. When at last the final path was completed, the platform released a burst of golden light. The entire chamber shifted, and the stone dissolved into thin air. Rin and Myra floated gently back toward the ship, carried by a soft current of energy. Taro and Lian helped them inside, their faces filled with awe. "You solved it," Taro said. "The labyrinth wanted to see if we could think as well as endure." The aurora moved forward again, and the corridors ahead changed. Where before they were narrow and tense, now they opened wider, glowing more warmly. It was as though the labyrinth had begun to recognize the crew. Still, the trials were not over. Another chamber appeared, this one filled with illusions of fear. Each crew member saw something different. Taro saw his engines breaking beyond repair. Lian saw the ship lost in endless void. Myra saw herself trapped in darkness, unable to guide the way. Even Rin saw a vision of his crew failing, their ship scattered into dust. The illusions felt real, so real that their hearts raced and their breaths shortened. Yet slowly they realized the truth. These were not predictions. They were fears made visible. Rin raised his voice, strong and calm. "These visions are lies. They are only shadows of our fear. The labyrinth is testing our courage." One by one, the crew closed their eyes and steadied themselves. They remembered why they had come, remembered their trust in one another. When they opened their eyes, the illusions were gone. The chamber grew quiet again, and the golden walls glowed with approval. The ship continued forward. By now the crew understood the pattern. The labyrinth tested not their weapons, not their power, but their patience, their reason, and their courage. Every trial had been designed to break those who relied only on strength. Myra spoke what they were all thinking. This labyrinth was never meant for the strongest or the wealthiest. It was meant for those who can adapt, those who can endure. That is why humans may succeed. We are not the strongest, but we are the most stubborn. Rin nodded. His voice was steady, filled with quiet pride. This is the human method. We listen. We learn. We endure. That is how we will reach the heart of the labyrinth. At last, the ship entered a new corridor, one brighter and smoother than any before. The walls no longer twisted in harsh patterns. Instead, they flowed gently, guiding them like a river towards something greater. The labyrinth had tested their patience, their logic, and their courage. And now, it seemed, it was ready to show them what waited at its core. The journey into the heart was not yet finished, but for the first time, the crew felt the labyrinth was no longer only an enemy. It was also a teacher. And they, the humans, were proving themselves worthy students. The aurora moved steadily through the glowing corridors. Every trial they had faced lingered in the minds of the crew, but the path ahead now felt smoother, as if the labyrinth had accepted their progress. The golden walls no longer bent in sharp traps. Instead, they flowed with a calm rhythm, guiding the ship deeper. Captain Rin stood at the viewing deck with his crew. "We are getting close. Every trial has been leading us here. The labyrinth is not endless. It has a center." Myra studied the golden map, which now glowed brighter than ever. Its symbols shifted in harmony with the walls around them. "Yes, Captain. The path is straight now. It is no longer a maze. It is leading us directly to the heart." Taro leaned forward eagerly. "Then we are about to see what no other crew has ever seen. The secret the galaxy has feared for centuries." The corridor opened suddenly, expanding into a chamber so vast that even the ship's sensors could not measure its size. The crew fell silent. Before them stretched a golden expanse, like the inside of a sun. At the very center floated a structure of impossible beauty, a colossal sphere pulsing with light, surrounded by rings of energy that turned slowly in silence. "The Golden Heart," Myra whispered. Her voice trembled with awe. The sphere's surface was alive with flowing patterns, similar to the carvings on the fragments but larger, grander, and more complex. Each pattern shifted and changed, forming rivers of light that moved in harmony with the turning rings. The sight filled the crew with both wonder and fear. The ship approached carefully, guided by the golden map. As they drew closer, the patterns on the heart began to react. The rivers of light twisted toward the aurora, as if sensing their presence. Suddenly, a deep vibration filled the chamber. The crew held their breath. The Golden Heart was awakening. Lien tightened his grip on the controls. "Captain, should we hold position?" Rin shook his head slowly. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. "No. We came here to find the truth. Take us closer." The aurora advanced until the ship hovered just above the surface of the glowing sphere. Then the light surged outward, surrounding the vessel in a golden aura. For a moment, the crew felt weightless, as if time itself had paused. Myra gasped as new symbols appeared on the map. They were clearer now, almost readable without translation. She whispered the words as they formed. "You have come far. You have faced the trials. You stand before the heart." The symbols shifted again. "Now you must listen." The crew gathered in silence as the sphere pulsed brighter. The walls of the chamber echoed with a voice, not spoken with sound, but carried directly into their minds. It was not human, not alien, but something ancient and vast. "We are the builders," the voice said. "Long ago, we walked among the stars. We had knowledge and power beyond measure. But power alone destroys. To guard what we had learned, we created the labyrinth. Not as a treasure, but as a trial. Those who reach the heart are those who are ready to bear the weight of our legacy." The crew listened, every word carving itself into their minds. The voice was calm, yet carried the force of ages. The sphere continued, "Many came before you. They sought power for themselves. They sought to rule, to conquer, to claim. They failed. The labyrinth judged them and found them unworthy. You are different. You carried patience. You carried reason. You carried courage." The words filled the crew with both pride and responsibility. Humanity, often seen as weak and small among the stars, had reached the very place where mighty empires had fallen. The voice spoke again. "The legacy is not a weapon. It is knowledge. The heart holds the memory of our people, the sum of all we discovered, all we built, all we became. It may guide you, but only if you choose wisely. What you decide here will shape not only your kind, but the galaxy itself." The golden light dimmed slightly, as if waiting. The labyrinth had placed the final choice before them. Taro's voice broke the silence. "Knowledge of an ancient race. This could make humanity powerful beyond measure. We could rise above every empire, every rival. We could finally be seen as equals." Myra shook her head. "That is not what the warnings said. Greed will lead to ruin. If we take this only for ourselves, the labyrinth will judge us as unworthy." The crew fell into deep silence. The choice was clear, yet heavy. To keep the knowledge for themselves would mean power, but it would also betray everything the labyrinth had tested them for. To share it would be to risk giving strength to rivals, but it would also honor the builder's design. Captain Rin looked at his crew, his eyes firm. "Every trial we faced taught us something. Patience, reason, courage. Each test pushed us to think not as conquerors, but as guardians. The builders did not ask for rulers. They asked for those who would protect their legacy. If we take this only for ourselves, we will fall like the others. The crew listened in silence, then slowly nodded in agreement. They understood. The human method was not about domination, but about survival and adaptation. That was what had brought them here, and that was what would carry them forward. Ren turned to the sphere and spoke with steady voice. We choose to share. The knowledge you hold is not ours alone. It belongs to the galaxy, to all who are willing to learn and not to rule. If you accept us, then let us carry your legacy to all. For a moment, the chamber was silent. Then the golden heart pulsed brighter than 1,000 suns. The entire labyrinth trembled with energy, yet it was not a tremor of anger but of acceptance. The rings around the sphere turned faster, glowing with brilliant light. The voice returned, filled with calm strength. You have chosen well. The labyrinth has judged you worthy. Take our legacy, not as owners, but as keepers. Carry it forward, and let it guide your kind to walk a path of wisdom. The golden light surged outward, flowing into the aurora. The ship shook gently as streams of data and energy poured into its systems. Symbols filled the screens, knowledge beyond imagination, maps of the stars, sciences lost to time, truths that no living species had ever seen. Myra's eyes filled with tears as she read the endless flow of information. This is more than power. This is history. This is everything they were. The golden heart pulsed one last time, then grew still. The voice faded, leaving behind only silence. But the silence was no longer heavy. It was peaceful, as though the builders themselves rested, their legacy safe at last. The crew of the Aurora stood together, humbled and awed. They had reached the heart of the labyrinth. They had faced the trials, chosen wisely, and earned the trust of a civilization long gone. Humanity now carried a treasure far greater than weapons or riches. They carried knowledge. And with it came the weight of responsibility. The forbidden golden labyrinth had opened its heart, and humanity had been found worthy. The chamber of the golden heart still glowed faintly as the aurora drifted near its surface. The great sphere had poured its knowledge into the ship, and the crew now held the legacy of the builders. Yet even as the light dimmed, the air inside the vessel felt heavy. They all understood that the real test was not finished. Captain Rin stood at the center of the bridge, his hands resting on the command chair. He looked at his crew one by one. Myra, who had guided them through endless puzzles. Lian, whose steady hands had flown them through impossible dangers. Taro, whose bold spirit never gave way to fear. Each of them had proven themselves in the trials of the labyrinth, but now they faced a different challenge, one no map could guide them through. Myra broke the silence first. We hold knowledge that no living species has ever touched. This is not just science or history. These are the thoughts of the builders themselves. What do we do with it? Taro's voice carried both excitement and caution. With this knowledge, we can advance centuries beyond where we stand. Humanity can rise above every empire. No one will ignore us again. Lian frowned. His eyes were fixed on the glowing streams of symbols still running across the ship's screens. But that is not what the labyrinth asked of us. The warnings were clear. Greed leads to ruin. If we keep this for ourselves, are we not making the same mistake as those who failed before? The debate filled the room like fire. The choice seemed impossible. To keep the knowledge for humanity alone promised strength, safety, and respect among the stars. To share it meant risking the unknown, giving rivals the same tools, and perhaps even creating new dangers. Ren listened carefully. He did not interrupt, letting his crew speak freely. Each voice mattered. Each perspective was part of the answer they needed. Myra finally turned to the captain. What do you think, Ren? He looked at the glowing heart beyond the window. His voice was calm but carried weight. We have already been judged once. The labyrinth tested us not for strength, but for patience, for courage, and for reason. The builders did not want rulers. They wanted guardians. If we keep this only for ourselves, then we have failed the very purpose of this place. The crew fell quiet. His words struck deep, for each of them remembered the wrecks of the other ships, the warnings on the walls, and the illusions that showed the cost of arrogance. Taro leaned back slowly, his earlier excitement dimming. So the true trial is not the traps or the puzzles. It is this choice. That is why none of the others returned. They failed here, at the heart. Yes, Myra agreed. The labyrinth gave us knowledge, but it also gave us a burden. We must decide what to do with it, and that decision will define us forever. The ship's systems hummed softly as if waiting for their answer. Even the golden heart seemed to pulse faintly, as though listening to their thoughts. After long silence, Rin gave his decision. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried both pride and responsibility. We will not claim this for ourselves. Humanity is not ready to carry such power alone. If the builders wanted a single race to rule, they would have chosen long ago. Instead, they built this labyrinth as a trial for all. We will share this knowledge, not as rulers, but as keepers. We will carry their legacy to the galaxy, and we will honor their purpose. The crew exchanged glances. Slowly, each of them nodded. The weight of the choice was heavy, but they felt unity in it. This was not just Rin's decision. It was their decision as one crew, as humans who had dared to step where others would not. At that moment, the golden heart pulsed brighter. A voice echoed again, calm and timeless. You have chosen the path of guardians. This is the inheritance we leave to you. Not the power to rule, but the wisdom to guide. Carry it well, for the future of many rests upon it. Golden light flowed once more into the aurora, not as streams of symbols this time, but as a soft radiance that filled every corner of the ship. The crew felt it in their bones, a warmth that seemed to settle into their hearts. It was not just knowledge they carried now. It was trust. When the light faded, the heart grew still. The great sphere returned to silence, its task complete. The labyrinth itself shifted, and the walls of the chamber began to open. A new path appeared, leading outward. The labyrinth was releasing them. Myra's voice was soft with awe. It is letting us go. No one before has ever left this place alive, and now it opens the way for us. Lian guided the ship forward. The corridors no longer twisted with traps. They flowed smoothly, like rivers of light, carrying the aurora toward the outer edge of the labyrinth. As they traveled, the crew remained quiet, each lost in thought. They had entered the labyrinth as explorers seeking mystery. They left it as guardians carrying a burden of knowledge. What they would do with it once they returned to the galaxy was a question that would shape history. When at last they passed through the silent gate once more, the labyrinth behind them began to fade. The golden corridors dissolved into starlight, vanishing as though they had never been. Only the golden map remained aboard the aurora, its fragments still glowing faintly, a reminder of the journey. Taro watched the fading light with wonder. It disappears for others, but not for us. We will carry the proof, and we will carry the choice we made. Captain Rin stood at the viewing deck, watching the stars reappear. For the first time in what felt like ages, he saw the familiar sparkle of the galaxy beyond. Yet it looked different now. Every star seemed brighter, more alive, as if waiting for the legacy they carried. The labyrinth has ended, he said quietly. But our task has only begun. The galaxy must learn what we have learned. That will be our true trial. The crew nodded, their faces solemn but filled with pride. They had inherited the greatest gift of all, not because they were the strongest, but because they had chosen wisely. Humanity, the young race often overlooked, now carried the voice of the builders. And with that inheritance came responsibility far greater than any weapon or throne. The forbidden golden labyrinth had given them not power, but purpose. The aurora sailed through open space once more, leaving behind the fading light of the labyrinth. The stars stretched endlessly across the viewing deck, familiar yet changed in the eyes of the crew. They carried with them something greater than treasure. They carried the inheritance of the builders. Captain Rin stood quietly, watching the map of the galaxy on the screen. The golden fragments now glowed brighter than ever, showing routes, star systems, and secrets hidden for ages. But the map was no longer only a guide to the labyrinth. It was now a guide to knowledge paths leading to places where wisdom had been stored, forgotten by time. Myra looked at the data flowing across her console. This is more than I imagined. The builders recorded sciences, histories, even philosophies. Their thoughts stretch across every field of knowledge. Lian's steady voice carried a sense of awe. It will take generations just to study what they gave us. Humanity may rise faster than anyone can imagine. Taro leaned back, his arms folded. His usual boldness was tempered by thought. But this is not only about us. If we share this knowledge, it could change the balance of the galaxy. Old powers will fear it. New powers will rise. Some may even try to take it from us. The weight of his words filled the room. The responsibility was real. The labyrinth had tested them for wisdom, but wisdom was not only about choosing. It was also about what came after the choice. Ren turned from the window and faced his crew. His voice was steady. We cannot let fear decide for us. The builders trusted us. That means we must trust ourselves. We will return home. We will carry this knowledge not as rulers, but as guardians. What we do with it will shape the path of every star we touch. The crew nodded. Though uncertainty filled the future, they felt unity. They had survived the labyrinth together. They would face the galaxy together. Days passed as the Aurora traveled back toward human space. The journey was calmer than the path that had led them there, yet the crew never stopped feeling the weight of what they carried. Each of them studied parts of the data, and every discovery left them humbled. They found designs for ships that could travel faster than light without strain. They found cures for sicknesses long thought incurable. They found philosophies about peace, cooperation, and survival. Myra's eyes lit with wonder as she read through one section. The builders were not just thinkers. They were dreamers. They wanted their knowledge to inspire, not to control. That is why they left it behind in trials, not in thrones. Taro studied another section and frowned. They also warned of dangers. They recorded their mistakes, the times when even they grew arrogant. They knew how easy it was to lose balance. That is why they built the labyrinth in the first place. To guard others from repeating their fall. The Aurora finally reached the edge of human space. Messages from nearby stations filled the ship's channels. Their vessel had been missing for months, and many had thought them lost forever. Now, their return sparked waves of questions. As the crew docked at the first human outpost, officials and scientists crowded the hangar. They stared at the golden fragments, at the glowing patterns on the walls of the ship, and at the crew who had survived the impossible. The story of the forbidden golden labyrinth spread quickly, reaching every corner of human space. Some listened with wonder, eager to hear of the builder's wisdom. Others listened with fear, wary of what this knowledge could mean for power among the stars. Debates rose almost immediately. Should the knowledge be shared with all races or should it be guarded as humanity's secret treasure? Rin spoke at every council, his words calm but firm. The builders tested us not for greed, but for wisdom. They trusted us to be guardians, not rulers. If we keep this knowledge for ourselves, then we betray their gift. We must share it, not recklessly, but with care. It belongs not to one, but to all who are ready to learn. His voice carried through halls of leaders, scientists, and explorers. Some argued, some resisted, but his words found allies as well. Many remembered how humanity had once been seen as fragile and unimportant. Now, through wisdom and courage, they had reached a place where others had failed. That story itself gave strength to Rin's message. Months passed as the first fragments of knowledge were studied and shared. Human scientists worked with other species, unlocking medicines that saved lives, ships that could travel safer, and technologies that helped entire colonies survive. Tensions rose in some places, but in others, new friendships grew. Humanity, once overlooked, now stood at the center of a great turning point. On the Aurora, the crew watched as their discovery began to change the galaxy. Myra smiled softly as she read the reports. For the first time, our voice is being heard not because of war, but because of wisdom. That is the true power we found in the labyrinth. Leanne nodded. We are no longer just passengers among the stars. We are guides, in our own way. Taro grinned faintly, though his eyes carried thought. Strange. I once dreamed of returning as conquerors, stronger than anyone. But this feels greater. To inspire others, to change the galaxy without force. That is a victory no weapon could give. Captain Rin listened to his crew and felt pride. Their journey had begun with mystery, continued through trials, and ended with responsibility. Yet he knew it was not truly an ending. It was the beginning of something far larger. One evening, he stood at the viewing deck alone, gazing at the stars. The words of the builders echoed in his mind, not the power to rule, but the wisdom to guide. He understood them now in full. The labyrinth had not been a cage of traps. It had been a mirror, showing them what it meant to be more than explorers, more than survivors. It had shown them what it meant to be human among the stars. The forbidden golden labyrinth was gone, hidden once more in silence. But its legacy lived on. Humanity had been tested, and humanity had been found worthy. They carried not a weapon, but a light, one that could guide countless others. And so the Aurora prepared for new voyages, carrying the golden map and the wisdom of the builders. Wherever they traveled next, the crew knew they would not walk alone. For they carried a legacy greater than any empire, a legacy written not in gold or stone, but in choice. The human legacy had begun.